time to watch Twitch, you have $10, truly. If you don't have $10, you probably don't have time to watch Twitch because you should be working. You should be trying to earn money. It's not a ton. It's not like a ton of money. So being like, I'm broke, I can't afford to sub, that doesn't really track. What you mean to say is, I'm so irresponsible with my money, I can't support the entertainment that I enjoy.
Oh fuck.
Queen needs the deposit so she can say my name on the stream.
Simps. S-I-M-P-S. A word so frequently used that frankly I think the meaning of it is lost on the general public. People calling each other simps for merely just wanting to hear someone out, or people calling someone else a simp for understanding that others do indeed have rights. But we are so quick to accuse each other of simping or being simps without really understanding the mechanisms at hand, in addition to being more nuanced than someone begging for a crumb of coochie or sending someone a barrage of compliments in the hope that they'll let you smash. Today, I am proud to present Simps, a dissection. It is imperative that you know what or who you are dealing with when it comes to defining and classifying a group. For us, we need to have a solid and unbiased view of what a group is at its core. As a starting off point, I googled what people believe to be the definition of simps, and my findings are as follows. Google defines simp as a noun and someone who is a silly or foolish person. Urban Dictionary provides a more lengthy definition where they state that a simp is a man that puts himself in a subservient/submissive position under women in hopes of winning them over without bringing anything to the table. They also go as far as adding a secondary definition which states a simp is a man that prides himself with chivalry in hopes of getting sexual gratification from women. And lastly, I figured we'd look at a definition from an expert in the field, of course, so we go to Reddit from the Reddit user Shinny Lenny, who states that a simp is basically anyone who lives to serve a girl in hopes for sexual favors, like taking her out for dinner a lot and buying her gifts in a sad attempt to get out of the friend zone, or in a refusal to accept that there is no romantic connection. Some commonalities that I found between the definitions are that simps always place themselves in a subservient or submissive position under women. They will go to excessive lengths for sex, and they always expect sex regardless of whatever relationship they may or may not have had. And at the core of it all, there are always unreciprocated feelings between the simp and the person they are attracted to. However, I feel like these definitions as they stand are still lacking. A simp in the wild will be seen as confused and hurt as to why their advances are seen as weird or confused as to why they aren't working. So there has to be some sort of disillusionment to a large extent within the individual in order for them to be crazy enough to believe that they stand a chance at being successful either romantically or sexually. Additionally, I find that the scope of these definitions are severely limited to only straight men. You have to be more deluded than the simps themselves if you think men are the only one capable of simping. If I may, I would like to remind you about a little show called Phineas and Ferb. Now this show ran for about 222 episodes over the course of about 8 years, and who was there every single episode ready to do whatever her man said they were doing that day? That's right, Isabella Garcia Shapiro. Years of unshared feelings, but she brought her own goons to help with whatever Phineas wanted to do that day. I mean, I digress, but the point still stands. Anyone, and I mean anyone, can simp. I mean, unless you are both aromantic and asexual, but that's for later on in the video. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So, all of that being said, a new definition needs to be made, and the one that I came up with defines simp as an individual disillusioned with reality to the point of which they equate being nice and doing extravagant things toward the object of their affection places them in a position where they are owed sex. To be completely honest, I am aware that this definition is extremely wordy, but screw it. When you do weird amounts of math for shitposts on the internet, you can write the definitions. Now, I'm going to say something controversial. I do not think simping is always bad. Simping, unbeknownst to most, exists on a spectrum ranging from healthy to unhealthy. The people who have the healthiest relationships we can place under the level of royalty, or the healthiest amount of simping. Royalty is what we really should all strive for and is on the far left of the spectrum. Royalty consists of those who respect everyone, including those who they are romantically involved with. They have a solid understanding of their boundaries and the boundaries of others, and their expectations in their relationships are formed out of conversation and collaboration with the other individual. A true simp is literally the opposite of all of these traits. They always expect sex, they are off the goop to such an extent that even having the person who they have feelings for say to their face, "I want literally nothing to do with you," will not jar them from their illusion. These traits make a true simp the most unhealthy simp of all, landing on the far right of the spectrum. In its totality, the simping spectrum has 5 different levels that are shown here in this diagram. From left to right, royalty, chad, simp prone, simp adjacent, and true simp. Now, how far left or right an individual is on the simping spectrum is determined by the 5 main factors of simping, which are expectations, disillusionment, loyalty, chivalry, and interest. A lot of these have some crossing over in definition, to be completely honest, but each different area in simping is there for a very specific reason. I would say that interest is the most important factor of simping. If an individual experiences neither sexual nor romantic attraction, then they cannot be a simp. This is due to the very technical Tyler postulate, which states you cannot be a simp platonically because the definition of simp is implicit to sex and or romance. This is not to say that if you have interest in someone that automatically makes you a simp, but rather it disqualifies those who do not experience sexual or romantic attraction from being a simp. Disillusionment is the second most important factor because depending on the individual's understanding of the situation that they're in, they are willing to do more or less in the pursuit of a sexual or romantic relationship. Loyalty and chivalry go hand in hand because how loyal someone is to another individual will determine how chivalrous they will be. For example, do you remember the OK Boomer girl from Twitter a while back? Before it was exposed that she had a boyfriend, people were in chat defending her honor from those individuals who called her a thought. Now, ask yourself this. Did she ever say that she needed folks to be in the comments fighting against dissidents? Nope. Are they going to anyways? I mean, expectations is the culmination of all the other factors of simping in addition to being at the core of it all. Simps expect sex or a romantic relationship for doing things that they deem to be desirable to the other person and believe that as a result of these actions that they are owed something for it. There is one more factor that I called the Lo-Fi Simpson Edit factor, or ELSA for short. This factor is a key component outside the other 5 and determines the range of simping that one can be, because if you score low in something else but listen to LCEs frequently, that still counts as simping to a small extent and would raise your score by a significant amount. On the topic of scores, it's important to note that so far, we've only discussed things that are qualitative in nature, so stuff you can see and observe, and that shows half the story. In order to really determine how much of a simp an individual is, we have to use quantitative data. We're going to get into math, ladies and gentlemen. You've waited long enough, so let's just jump right into the math. In the description, there will be a PDF of the rubric to grade yourself, along with a link for the spreadsheet that you can copy and use as a calculator so that you can easily tell what your simping level is. On the screen right now is the equation. There's also instructions in the description that breaks the equation down into easier chunks if you want to do that by hand instead of using the calculator. Lastly, there's some important tidbits to know about just how the equation works and certain parts of it. For one, each main factor of simping are all ranked from 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and best, that being on the same rank of royalty, and 5 being the highest and worst, being on the same rank as true simp. The only 2 factors that are not scaled on 1 to 5 are LSEF and the interest variable. Now, the interest variable is either 0 or 1, 0 being someone who is both aromantic and asexual, and 1 for someone who experiences sexual and or romantic attraction. Lastly, the coefficients within the equation are the numbers that they are for a very specific reason. 522.8 is the amount of followers that the OK Boomer Girl had back in April if you took that amount of followers and divided it by 1,000. This is because, of course, there's a lot of folks simping after her, so the amount of followers that she had would be a good measure for disillusionment. On the same train of thought, 26.8 is the amount of likes that Annie J, iDubbbz's girlfriend at the time back in April, had on her OnlyFans divided by 1,000. Congratulations, you now have your simp power level. You've wasted God knows how long to figure this out, you should be proud. But truly, at the end of the day, the only person you need to simp for is yourself. And of course, Jesus